Namaskar. I am Sanjay Mansukhani from Kolkata. I am a teacher of Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And dear friends, today we are going to discuss the two most popular aspects of yoga, popular worldwide, and they are asanas and pranayama. Let us look at what Patanjali has actually originally said about the asanas and pranayama. The whole world is believing that yoga is asana and that yoga is pranayama. But when we look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the original authentic source of Yoga Shastra, written 2400 years back, we realize that in the entire collection of 196 sutras by Maharishi Patanjali, where he has compiled all yogic knowledge present in his time, covering the main parts of yoga: samadhi, sadhana, vibhuti, and kevalya. So samadhi is all about the mind and meditation at the higher stages. Sadhana is the practice by which one can achieve the highest state in yoga. Vibhutis are the mystic powers, the supernatural powers which a yogi acquires on the way to the highest state in yoga. And kevalya is that highest state in yoga, the state of complete liberation. So here in his entire collection of 196 sutras, my dear friends, Patanjali has dedicated only 8 words for asana. Yes, there are only 3 sutras which are talking about asanas. So let us see how has Patanjali defined an asana. In his time, asana was connected with the sense of a seat. So a seat is called an asana. So when Patanjali speaks about an asana, it essentially is a sitting posture, a place to sit, whereby when you sit, he has said you must ensure that asana, that posture is steady and comfortable. So why should that asana be comfortable and why should it be steady? The asana should be comfortable so that you are in a relaxed state of mind. Once the posture is comfortable, then the body will not interfere with the work you do with your mind. At the same time, if it is steady, if one can hold it steady for a comparatively long period of time, then again the body does not cause a hindrance, does not disturb what we are doing with our meditation, with our mental work, with our concentration. So dear friends, this is the simple way Patanjali has defined it. He said, Sthira Sukham Asanam. The asana should be sthira. Sthira means steady, and the asana should give sukha, should be a seat which can give you peace. There has been a 14th century work called Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So Patanjali wrote his work 2400 years back, roughly. And this is in the 14th century. That is about 600 years back. So after 17 to 1800 years of Patanjali's original work, Hatha Yoga Pradipika came. And this taught about 84 asanas. And it said these asanas were taught by Shiva. And each asana here represents about 1 lakh species, because Hindu philosophy believes that we go through 84 lakh different yonis, different births in our life cycle. So here 84 asanas for 84 lakh yonis means There is one asana per 1 lakh yoni. Now, Patanjali has not elaborated about the asanas, elaborated about the physical way to sit. He has not given the name of any asana. And why is that so? Some commentators say this essential work is about the mind. His essential work is about the Raj Yoga, as Vivekananda called it. And it is the king of yoga. It is a royal yoga and it works with the mind. And Patanjali had defined yoga as yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That means the purpose of yoga is to ensure that the vrittis in the chitta, the fluctuations in the state of mind, are controlled, are subdued, and eventually brought to zero. And only when they come to zero, that one reaches the ultimate goal of yoga. So for that, to work on the mind, to ensure that the vrittis, the thoughts coming in the mind are no longer there, are controlled, are subdued, and are completely brought to a standstill, it is necessary that the body must not interfere in this process. Hence, the body must be comfortable and the body must be steady, the body must be sthira. Moving further, there have been various poses which have been covered commentators that these are important asanas for practice. We will not go into those. In the second sutra on asana, Patanjali says, it is by relaxation of effort and by absorbing your mind in the ananta, in the infinite, that you are moving ahead with your practice and preparing your journey ahead on the path of yoga. So the posture, once you are comfortable, once you are steady, then your mind should be relaxed. And once your mind is relaxed, then, dear friends, he is asking you to absorb your mind, to think continuously, to concentrate on the infinite. He uses the word ananta. Now, various commentators have looked at ananta in different interpretations. One of the interpretations is that ananta represents Patanjali himself, because Patanjali is considered to be a reincarnation, an avatar of Sheshnag. And Sheshnag was the, you can say, the asana, the seat of Lord Vishnu. So Sheshnag is considered to be Ananta. And therefore, when Patanjali is asking you to focus on the Ananta, some of the commentators feel he is wanting you to meditate on his own form, on his own self. Now, dear friends, what happens when you meditate on Ananta, the infinite? You see, we become what we meditate on. We become what we think about constantly, consistently. That is the nature, that is the characteristic we take on. So here it is understandable why Patanjali is asking us to focus, to concentrate, to meditate, to absorb our mind in Ananta. As we practice Ananta, as we focus our mind on the infinite, we will find our mind slowly, steadily, constantly growing in ability to absorb knowledge, growing in ability to hold power, growing in terms of intellect, growing in terms of loving capabilities, growing in terms of goodness. So once when you start focusing on Ananta, from becoming a narrow-minded person, you become a broad-minded person, and on further meditating on Ananta, you become an infinite-minded person. And that is when the expansion of the mind inside is complete, is total. And the world outside is a reflection of our inner mind. And when we find that the mind inside has expanded to a huge level, to an infinite level, we will find our grasp of the world outside will also be of the infinite order. We will find our capacity to do work, our capacity to think, our capacity to lead, our capacity to manage will go to humongous proportions. So, dear friends, Patanjali is asking in a very simple way that you sit in a position which is comfortable, you sit in a position which you can hold steadily, comfortably, and once you are in that relaxed state of mind, once you are relaxed in the body, then start meditating on the infinite. So you will find your mind becoming infinite with sustained practice, and it will start reflecting in all the power, all the knowledge, all the intelligence, all the wisdom which your mind will now hold. It will start reflecting on the impact, the influence your mind will have on the outer world and on people out there. So to grow internally is the key to outer success. And the easiest way is simply sit. Sit anywhere. You may sit on a chair, you may sit on a sofa, you may sit on the bed, you may sit on the floor, but preferably sit. And when you are seated and when you are comfortable, when your mind is relaxed and when you are focusing on Ananta, you will find wonderful things happening if done regularly, long term. And another interesting factor, friends, here is that this is the only meditation in the entire 196 sutras which Patanjali has suggested. He has essentially suggested two techniques, two steps of sadhana. One is this meditation on Ananta, and other is the chanting of Om. Apart from these two, Om and Ananta, you will not find Patanjali mentioning anything whatsoever. And one can connect the Om with Ananta also, because Om represents Ishvara. Om is the symbol of Ishvara. And once when you are able to believe in the infinite and meditate on the infinite, you are in a way meditating on Ishvara. So all the powers, all the knowledge, all the I would say attributes of Ishvara which you believe in will start manifesting in you, will start showing up in you. That is the beauty of what Patanjali has suggested. And it's a very simple exercise. Now, there are some people who have a difficulty in meditating on the infinite because they find it difficult to comprehend and infiniteness as an object. So as a means of support, as an alambana to reach the infinite, to think of the infinite, the tool which I would suggest to you is to think of Akasha. Akasha is one such entity, the sky, the space, which all of us can see. This is infinite, this is Virat, this is virtually unending. And here in the sky, we can see many, many stars. And as science says, that the sky is full of trillions of stars, planets and moons. There are a huge number of galaxies out there, and it is immeasurable. One cannot measure it. So what I would suggest to you is sit down in a comfortable position, close your eyes, feel relaxed mentally, and then you can start visualizing the sky, the Akasha, full of its trillions of stars and planets, and think that you are that infiniteness, you are that Akasha, you are that sky. Feel the sky all around you, above you, below you, above, in front of you, in the back of you, and then be there in that state for about 10 to 15 minutes every day. And with regular practice, you will find all your troubles going away. You will find all your weaknesses and afflictions going away. You will find expansion in all frontiers of your life. Okay, so moving on. Patanjali in the third sutra and the final sutra on asana says that once when you are practicing the asana and once when you are focusing on the infinite, then the opposites, the dualities of this creation, they go away. because you have been looking and focusing and meditating and absorbing your mind on the absolute extremes. In this sky, say for instance, you have the hot sun, you have the cold moon, you have empty space, you have motion where meteors are flying past, and you have huge planets who are virtually not moving. So all the opposites are experienced once when you do the Ananta meditation using the Akasha as a support. So here the Dvand, the hot and the cold, the good and the bad, the high and the low, these opposites, they do not impact you any longer. Their impact disappears. So if you want to make your mind free from the fluctuations of the world, from the opposites of the world, then this is a good way to do it. Sit in asana, be comfortable, be steady, relax your mind and focus it on the infinite, and you will find umpteen number of benefits. Patanjali in the subsequent sutra says, when the asana is accomplished, when you are able to do this comfortably, now the next step would be to work on the breath. One can work on the breath in number of ways, and pranayam by definition means the control, the regulation of the breath. When we are controlling the speed of our breathing, that is pranayama. And if you look at it, it is very simple. We take in the breath and we take out the breath. So we have an incoming breath and an outgoing breath. And both in the incoming side and the outgoing side, we can regulate our breath, we can control our breath, we can control the speed with which we are breathing. One must always keep in mind that the purpose of yoga is to purify the mind, and pranayama is one of the methods by which the mind gets purified in a very powerful way. Our mind is affected by three qualities. These three qualities are qualities of goodness, qualities of badness, and qualities of constant change. So what it means is we will be having some thoughts in us which are beneficial for us. We will be having some thoughts in us which are non-beneficial for us. And thoughts cannot remain steady in our mind. We will find thoughts have a tendency of shifting, of moving. So good thoughts will become bad thoughts will become good thoughts. So now there is a change happening. So change per se has to be stopped, and all the thoughts which are non-beneficial have to be stopped. So we need to purify our mind and ensure our mind only has beneficial thoughts. So these beneficial thoughts, these good thoughts are called sattvic thoughts, and the non-beneficial thoughts which are not good for us are called tamasic thoughts. And the change which keeps on happening between these thoughts is called rajas. So we need to ensure that we remove all rajasic and tamasic thoughts, and our mind is full of good and pleasant thoughts and beneficial thoughts. When our mind is full of good and beneficial thoughts, we are progressing on the path of yoga. So pranayama is one of those ancient practices by which one can control the breathing speed of the breath and thus purify the mind, remove the non-beneficial thoughts and keep the beneficial thoughts. So let us look at the three types of pranayama which are possible. One is when you are breathing out, that time you are holding the breath. Supposing you have exhaled, taken the breath out completely, and now you are holding the breath. So that is one form of pranayama. The second form of pranayama is when you are taking in the breath and inhaling and then holding it inside. So that is the second sort of inhalation. And the third is where you are neither inhaling nor exhaling. So that is the third form of breath control. So when we are exhaling and holding, this is called Rechaka. When we are inhaling and holding, this is called Puraka. And once we are neither inhaling nor exhaling but suspending the breathing, this is called Kumbhaka. So to remember them easily, Kumbhaka means a pot. So you can assume a pot has air inside it. Air is not moving in, air is not moving out. So when the breath is held in the lungs without inhaling or exhaling, it is simply there. That is Kumbhaka. When we are exhaling and holding, that is Rechaka. And once we are filling our lungs with air completely, so the Hindi word for filling completely is Pura. So you can remember that as Puraka. So these are the three meditations, these are the three pranayamas which Patanjali has suggested. Now he goes on to say, now these three, one the external one, second the internal one, and the restrained one in which we are holding the breath without putting it in or out, they are all subtle and they depend on the place, the time and the number. So what does he mean here by the place, the time and the number? The place means the quantity of air, the quantity of space you are pulling in and you are pushing out. So that is the space he is talking about. The time is the amount of time you are holding it in or the amount of time you are holding it out. So the holding time is called the time. And the number is, in order to regulate and ensure a particular amount of periodicity, regularity, there is a number which is put in place. So while you are holding, you can count. So by these three parameters, one can define any kind of pranayama. Our Maharshi Patanjali even then goes further. He talks of a fourth type of pranayama, which is beyond what is internal and what is external. This is a kind of pranayama which he calls the Chaturtha type, the fourth type. But not many commentators are able to explain what is this fourth type of pranayama which Patanjali has spoken about. A few of them have somehow given us some guidance. One of them is Vyasa. He says when there is total suppression of both inhalation and exhalation, then it is a kind of a kumbhaka. This is a pure kumbhaka. Vijnana Bhikshu, another prominent commentator, calls it a kevala kumbhaka. Now what happens here? In this, you are holding the breath, but you are holding it for a sustained amount of time. And it cannot be just simply done by any person. It requires sufficient amount of sadhana and practice. Only adept yogis who have done a lot of practice on this can actually do the Chaturtha type of pranayama. What it means is a yogi who is efficient, who has knowledge of Chaturtha type of pranayama, can hold his breath probably for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 12 days, 15 days, huge number of days. Then the question arises, while a yogi is holding his breath, is not taking in and taking out air, is not taking in and taking out the prana, what is actually happening out there? Then he realizes that all this is happening because his internal prana, the prana which is already there in him, is working, and he is somehow taking in prana without breathing in and breathing out. There is a steady supply of prana to him without the movement of the air. The standing air by itself is supplying this yogi prana. But then the question is, some of these yogis have been put underground. They have spent 10 days, 12 days underground where there is no question of an air supply. Even then, they have been able to survive. There have been many such reported cases, and one of the most prominent ones happened in Maharaja Ranjit Singh's palace, where a yogi was buried alive and taken out after about 10 to 12 days. And the whole process was documented by the Britishers, who were astounded. How could a man hold his breath for 10 to 12 days underground? But that happens with practice, that happens in Chaturtha type of pranayama. Now there is a story about Dhruva. Dhruva, the young boy who was not being loved by his father. His mother advises him to pray to Lord Vishnu so that he can take care of him and give him whatever he wants. And while Dhruv was preparing to worship Vishnu, he meets Narada, the sage, and Narada teaches him this particular form of Kevala Kumbhaka. And when he learns this form of Kevala Kumbhaka, the story goes, he was meditating in the forest, and there he held his breath for a substantial period of time, probably 14, 15 days. And the air which he was holding started suffocating the population around. And they were fighting for breath. They were struggling for air. And that is when they worshipped Vishnu, and Vishnu came to their rescue. Vishnu came to Dhruva and granted him whatever he wanted. And that is when Dhruva stopped his Kevala Kumbhaka. So this is an interesting part. Now, what exactly happens with pranayama? When you are doing these pranayamas, when you are doing the pranayama after being seated in a comfortable position, so the asana is taken care of and then the pranayama is practiced, then we find that the mind comes under tremendous control. The senses come under tremendous control. And why does that happen? Because there is a connection between the mind and the breathing. You see, when we are angry, when our mind is working fast, we will find our breathing also rushes. Breathing is fast. And when we are at peace, when we are calm, when we are in a pleasant situation, when we are enjoying our time with nature, for example, or when we are meditating, we will find our breathing becomes slow and calm. So there is a connection. Now by practicing pranayama, we are controlling the speed of the mind. We are controlling the behavior of the mind through the handle of the breath, through the control of the breath. And remember, dear friends, breathing is an involuntary activity. Breathing is a must for every individual. But all the involuntary activities of a human body normally happen inside the body. But here we have an involuntary body where we have a control, some amount of control over it outside. So that is why breathing is one of the powerful methods, powerful tools used since ancient times to regulate the mind, to bring the mind under control, to slow down the mind, to remove the thoughts which are present in the mind, to purify the mind. And once when we do that, once when we are able to remove the non-beneficial thoughts from the mind, the changing thoughts, rajasic thoughts from the mind, and we are only left with pure, good, benevolent thoughts, then the inner light of our soul starts shining, because earlier it was covered by all the impurities. Now with the right asana and the right pranayama, they get removed, they get uncovered, and the light of the soul, the light of the Atma, the light of the Purusha starts shining forth in all glory. And that is what is the main objective of pranayama. So pranayama is considered to be an important aspect of ashtangyoga, an important aspect of the practice of yoga, and it takes one deeper into the yogic journey. It takes one deeper on the journey of self-realization, soul realization, Purusha realization, and it is one of the simplest methods to practice. So, dear friends, with this, there is another benefit. Just because the mind has got clear of the impurities, of the Rajasic and Tamasic thoughts, of the non-beneficial thoughts, the mind is now comparatively better prepared. In fact, I would say far better prepared for concentration. Now the mind can go deep and focus on one thought and be there in that position for a longer duration of time, because the disturbing thoughts, the negative thoughts, the non-beneficial thoughts, the troubling thoughts are no longer there. So meditation can happen for a longer duration. Concentration can happen deeper. And the one-pointedness in the concentration may happen sooner. Therefore, pranayama is one of the essential methods by which one can bring the mind under control, purify the mind, improve the power of concentration. And also, one must remember that the mind is that important inner reality of us, that subtle element in us, which controls the senses. So once we have mind control, we automatically also have a good amount of control over our senses. So the non-beneficial thoughts, the destructive thoughts, the unwanted thoughts, which used to enter us through our sense organs, through our senses of perception, they automatically get drastically reduced, and we ensure a high state of purity within us, in our chitta, in our ego, in our intellect, in our mind. So the chitta by itself becomes more purer, and once it increases in purity, it reaches closer to the state of the Atma, to the state of the Purusha, to the state of the soul. Therefore, we see how important it is that asanas and pranayama are done properly, regularly, and for benefit of our journey on this path of yoga. So, dear friends, to conclude, I would say, we saw that asana is not the main focus area of Patanjali, and asana, in fact, is not yoga. It is a later development, probably about 1,800 years later than Patanjali, when Hatha Pradipika came with the 84 asanas, and then that got popularized. The original authentic yoga, the original authentic Yoga Sutras merely have 8 words on asana and 4 sutras on pranayama, but they are important. And yoga is essentially about the mind, the science of the mind, concentration, learning the various stages of concentration, and moving higher and higher through the 7 stages of samadhi, and reaching the next stage of samayama, going higher and higher through the various stages of insight and intuition, acquiring siddhis, acquiring powers, and then moving higher up, leaving those powers and entering the state of kevalya, once the mind is absolutely clear of all forms of thoughts, all forms of memories, all forms of sanskaras and karmas and kleshas which the mind has been carrying. And then there is the end to the cycle of birth and death. There is liberation, there is freedom, there is kevalya. So asana and pranayam are 2 simple limbs of Ashtang yoga, the 8-limbed yoga, to reach this state. Thank you so much for being there. God bless each one of you for taking your valuable time and listening to this talk. The purpose of these talks is to ensure that the original authentic knowledge of Yoga Sutras reaches out to the world, and we intend to help people reach a state of permanent happiness because that is what is the objective, the purpose of Yoga Sutras, permanent happiness. So we are wanting that you be permanently happy, and that permanent happiness be a part of your family, your society, your country, and other people of this world at large. So, with that objective, we are conducting these talks on the Yoga Sutras, and we hope you will benefit and you will spread this knowledge after acquiring a higher level of happiness and permanent happiness if God so will for you. Thanking you so much, my dear friends. God bless you. See you again. Take care. Namaskar.